Welcome to this presentation on multicultural counseling competencies, with a particular focus on ethics, multicultural orientation, and career counseling in diverse settings. As counselors in training, you are entering a profession that serves an increasingly diverse population. Your effectiveness depends not only on technical skill, but on your capacity to engage authentically with clients whose cultural backgrounds and lived experiences may differ substantially from your own. Over the next several minutes, we will explore the research base for multicultural competence, examine key frameworks guiding ethical and culturally responsive practice, and consider how these principles translate into career counseling. Let us begin with a foundational question. Why does multicultural competence matter? Historically, career counseling models were built on Western, white, individualistic frameworks that prioritize individual choice and linear career trajectories. These assumptions do not reflect the realities of many clients. When counselors operate from this default framework without examining it, they risk misunderstanding clients, mislabeling presenting concerns, and delivering ineffective or even harmful services. Culturally adapted interventions and counselors perceived by clients as multiculturally competent produce measurably better mental health outcomes. Soto et al., 2018. Ethical practice and cultural responsiveness are not separable. Attending to culture is not an add-on to practice. It is foundational to doing good work. The Multicultural Orientation Framework, or MCO, moves beyond a checklist of facts about different cultural groups. Davis and colleagues, 2018, describe MCO as a way of being, an ongoing relational stance that counselors bring to every session. The framework rests on three pillars. Cultural humility is an ongoing openness and curiosity toward clients' identities without assuming expertise about their experience. Cultural opportunities are moments within the session when cultural identity, oppression, or power surface naturally. They are not interruptions to the counseling process. They are the counseling process. Cultural comfort refers to the counselor's ease in engaging with culturally sensitive material. Importantly, MCO is not something you achieve and then set aside. It is a continuous practice that deepens over time. The research connects each pillar of MCO to concrete improvements in the counseling relationship and client outcomes. Cultural humility is linked to stronger working alliances and clients' perceived improvement in treatment. Davis et al., 2018, Kang and Kim, 2023. Cultural opportunities, when recognized and used skillfully, are associated with improved outcomes and reduced disparities. Davis et al., 2018, Stewart et al., 2023. Cultural comfort predicts stronger relational bonds and more effective task collaboration. King et al., 2020, Stewart et al., 2023. What makes MCO particularly valuable is that it captures how clients experience counselor competence. Not just what counselors know, but how they show up in the room. This distinguishes MCO from skills-based models that primarily measure what counselors can demonstrate on a checklist. How does MCO translate into career counseling practice? Three areas are particularly important. First, case conceptualization. Culturally responsive career counselors understand career concerns within the client's intersecting identities, including race, gender, class, immigration status, and disability, and within structural opportunity and oppression. Individual choice is always shaped by context. Second, in-session practice means explicitly inviting discussion of race, ethnicity, religion, immigration, and family expectations as they relate to work. Discrimination, visa constraints, and family obligations are central career content rather than peripheral concerns. Porter et al., 2025, Balin et al., 2024. Third, recognizing cultural opportunities means noticing what researchers describe as window pane moments, when cultural background surfaces naturally and can illuminate career preferences, constraints, and possibilities. Trevino et al., 2021, Stewart et al., 2023. Consider this applied case. A first-generation immigrant from a working-class background seeking career transition guidance when credentials are not recognized in the new country. This scenario illustrates all three MCO pillars in practice. Cultural humility means acknowledging the limits of the counselor's knowledge, inviting the client to describe their cultural context and prior work experience, and remaining genuinely open to pathways that differ from conventional career planning models. Cultural comfort means creating space to discuss stigma, discrimination, or the tension between family expectations and career goals, meeting the client where they are. Cultural opportunities arise when collective values or mobility concerns surface, opening exploration of credentialing options and community networks. Sound assessment and planning address structural barriers directly: foreign credential recognition, language access, and professional networks. Developing MCO is a career-long process. The research describes a progression moving through awareness, knowledge, deliberate practice, and ongoing supervision. Counselors in training need an integrated curriculum that covers demographics, cultural theory, assessment, systemic barriers, and advocacy, not as separate topics, but as interwoven threads. Flores and Hepner, 2002, Swanson, 1993. Deliberate practice, including structured performance tasks with feedback, builds the skills necessary to recognize and use cultural opportunities in session. Lee et al., 2025, Porter et al., 2025. Supervision is a key developmental tool. Structured, feedback-rich, culturally attuned supervision enhances trainees' socio-cultural awareness and cultural responsiveness self-efficacy. Instruments such as the MCOPT use video-based performance tasks to train counselors to recognize and respond to cultural moments in real time. Davis et al., 2025. Chong et al., 2025. We now turn to ethics, specifically the relationship between ethical practice and multicultural competence in school and mental health counseling. It is easy to treat ethics and multicultural competence as separate domains, ethics as a set of rules, and multicultural competence as a set of skills. Research and professional standards increasingly position them as interdependent. An ethical counselor is a multiculturally competent counselor. Core ethical domains include foundational principles, non-discrimination, social justice advocacy, culturally responsive assessment, and supervisor practices that model multicultural competence for counselors in training. Ethical practice in counseling is grounded in foundational principles: confidentiality, fairness, competence, integrity, and adherence to professional ethical codes. Rains and Dibble, 2021, Cotone et al., 2006. In school counseling, these principles play out in specific and sometimes complex situations. Common ethical dilemmas include the limits of confidentiality, role confusion, suspected abuse, record-keeping obligations, duty to report requirements, and informed consent when working with minors. Sega, 2024, Sensoy and Ikiz, 2022, Bang, 2025. Ethical decision-making models provide a structured pathway. Identify the issue, consult relevant codes and colleagues, weigh risks, act, and reflect on outcomes. Rains and Dibble, 2021, Laletas, 2019. Counselors working through these dilemmas move from initial discomfort to consultation to improved procedures, a developmental arc parallel to MCO. This slide highlights the most commonly cited ethical issues in school counseling practice. Confidentiality is frequently complicated by competing interests between student welfare and privacy, particularly when legal duties require disclosure. Record keeping raises concerns about accuracy, privacy, and legal risk. Rains and Dibble, 2021. Informed consent is especially complex when students are minors and parents hold legal authority, yet students also have their own rights and developmental needs. Role boundaries involve resisting pressure to perform tasks outside the counseling role and maintaining professional competence. Sensoy and Ikiz, 2022. Laleras, 2019. Notice the cultural dimension running through this content. Ethical practice cannot be divorced from cultural sensitivity, especially when counselors and clients do not share language or cultural background. When value conflicts arise, ongoing professional development and supervision become essential. Arredondo and Tovar Blank, 2014. The Multicultural and Social Justice Counseling Competencies, or MSJCC, provide the most comprehensive current framework for multicultural practice. The MSJCC organizes competencies across 4 domains: awareness of one's own cultural context, biases and privilege, knowledge of clients' cultural, socioeconomic, migration, and systemic contexts, skills in culture, infused assessment, counseling, and communication, including the practice of broaching, which means directly raising issues of race and culture in session, Davines et al. 2021, and advocacy and action at organizational, community, and policy levels to address systemic barriers. Ratz et al. 2016, Singh et al. 2020. What distinguishes the MSJCCC from earlier frameworks is its explicit attention to power, privilege, and oppression, and its positioning of counselors as agents of social justice, not only as individual helpers. Empirical syntheses of multicultural counseling competency research identify 4 primary categories: professional stance and openness to diversity, personality dispositions relevant to intercultural work, knowledge of diverse populations and cultural contexts, and practical skills in culturally responsive interviewing, assessment, and intervention planning. Chen et al., 2025, Kilich, 2025. An important finding across this literature is the knowing-doing gap. Counselors, including counselors in training, tend to rate themselves as multiculturally competent, but those self-ratings correlate more strongly with general self-efficacy than with externally evaluated practice. Counselors consistently overestimate their competence. Awareness and knowledge develop more readily than applied skills, particularly at organizational and systems levels. Vespia et al. 2010, Collins et al. 2021. This finding has direct implications for how training programs are designed and evaluated for competency development. 3 areas merit particular attention as you develop multicultural competence. Language and accessibility. Language barriers are among the most significant impediments to effective service delivery for linguistically diverse clients. Training that builds language proficiency and the use of language concordant services improve outcomes. When a full language match is not possible, trained interpreters and multilingual staff serve as interim solutions. Beaver et al., 2002. Vasquez et al., 2025. Assessment ethics. Culturally sensitive assessment requires attention to measurement equivalence and culturally informed interpretation. Counselors must avoid ethnocentric approaches to diagnosis and treatment planning. Launer and Ibrahim, 2008, Flores et al., 2003. Special and international student populations. Themes of intersectionality, systemic oppression, and holistic services are central here. A decolonizing lens challenges Eurocentric career models through critical race theory and liberation psychology. Balin et al., 2024, Singh et al., 2020. The central argument of this presentation comes together here. Ethical practice and multicultural competence are not parallel tracks. They are interdependent. To practice ethically is to practice with active attention to cultural context, equity, and social justice. Medvide, 2022, Ratz et al., 2016. Counselors who treat their ethical obligations as separate from their multicultural responsibilities are not fully meeting either. As counselors in training, your goal is to develop an integrated professional identity in which cultural responsiveness is not something you add to ethical practice. It is how you practice ethics. As we close, consider these key implications. For counselors in training, ground your practice in ethical principles while actively developing multicultural knowledge and skills rooted in cultural humility, ongoing self-reflection, and social justice commitments. Arredondo and Tovar Blanc, 2014. Fallender et al., 2021. For school counselors, navigate diverse student populations using competency-based preparation that addresses relational, systemic, and advocacy dimensions alongside culturally responsive interventions and crisis response capabilities. Slayton and Baskin, 2013. Perron et al., 2023. For the field, ongoing research is needed to refine competency measures, adapt ethical frameworks to local contexts, and evaluate programmatic outcomes. Chen et al., 2025, Kilich and Vanacek, 2025. Your development as a multiculturally competent, ethically grounded counselor is a career-long commitment that begins here in this program.